It's that easy.
Welcome to Talking with Soup. My name is Dan Campbell. I'm with Alex from All Time Loader Day.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on your camera.
My camera thing that I'm setting up in your dressing room. You're allowing me in.
I like it.
So, very Frank Turner-ian. I try to make Frank Turner into a philosophy. Let's begin at the beginning. Let's start. Emerald Moon Records.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? Did you find Emerald Moon? They find you?
They found us. Emerald Moon Records was a guy named Matt who he was living in Maryland at the time, and he basically just started this little label himself and was kind of fronting bands the money to get into a studio and record. We had never really done anything before, so he sort of, I guess at the time we were like 15, 16, and he sort of fronted us the $1,000 or whatever it cost to get in with, like, at the time it was Paul Levitt, actually, who's gone on to do a lot of other stuff, but fronted the money for us to go in and make our first EP ever, and that was like under the grounds that, I mean, we never actually signed anything, or it was like a very loose kind of thing, but that kind of set us up to be a part of his label. He ended up having a few bands. There was a band from Jersey called Hometown Anthem that we toured with. That was our first kind of real tour as well, and then a few other bands in that family that kind of had like small beginnings, and he was just sort of lending a helping hand.
I remember the label from bands like My America Is Watching Tigers Die and Dead Again. So was it strange at all to be on a label with a lot of kind of mathy hardcore bands?
Heavier bands? I don't know. I mean, it was one of those things where I think he had signed, those bands were already signed to that label when we signed there, and I think he just decided that he wanted to expand and branch out and sign some other stuff. I mean, like, I think he started signing just bands that he was friends with and the music he was directly involved with and into, and then he branched out and signed a few like pop punk bands and whatever else, and yeah, I mean, it was cool, you know. It opened up a lot of doors on the basic level of kind of like, it put us in contact with a bunch of bands we hadn't played with before in different areas, and it kind of allowed us to book shows in new states that we hadn't played yet and things like that. I mean, all of this was happening while we were still in high school too. So yeah, it definitely helped. It was a little launching pad.
Now, your manager has the name of a professional wrestler, more or less. You're gonna give him Keith's last name?
Lazarchuk.
But it's spelled
Laser.
Lazarchuk.
Lazarchuk, yeah.
Where did Keith come on board? Because he wasn't like a really big name manager. It's not like he was doing Blink or Green Day or something.
He wasn't even a manager, really. I mean, he when we met him, he was running a festival called oh god, what was it? Flipside Festival.
Okay.
And he would do that out of like Northern Virginia, and he ran a rec center out of Northern Virginia as well that he would host shows at, and that kind of grew and grew and grew. And the first contact we had with him was just me and Jack as annoying 15-year-old kids. Like, we somehow got his number and then just kept calling him like, please let us play Flipside, please let us play Flipside, because Flipside at the time, like, he booked legit bands, you know, Fall Out Boy was playing in, you know, Starting Line, and, you know, bands that we look up to. So it was kind of one of those things where we just harassed him until he gave in and put us on the bill, and he made us play up against the Starting Line, who at the time was massive. So thanks a lot for that, Keith, you dick. And then he also, at the time, he managed a band called Driving East.
Okay.
Yeah.
They told him to set your goals.
Yeah. And so during that time, we actually ended up having a show with Driving East that I guess he threw us on at, like, I can't remember where it was exactly, maybe Pennsylvania or something. But we ended up playing a church with, like, a church hall kind of deal with Driving East, and he was at the show, and he finally saw us live, and after that, he just kind of kept in touch. And we had the beginnings of conversations with other managers and other people starting to happen as well, but we decided to go with him. And the real connection and the weird tie is also through Nano. Do you know Nano? You know.
I've met Nano.
Okay, yeah. Nano now works for.
It's like a big radio band, right? Like Neon Trees.
Yeah, I'm blanking. Not One Direction, the other one, The Wanted.
Okay.
And he works with Scooter Braun and that whole thing. So Nano's gone on to do some awesome stuff himself. But we played with Nano's band. Nano kind of vouched for us to Keith and was like, they're great dudes, they're a great band. And Keith finally checked us out, and that's how we ended up working with Keith.
It's funny, we used to do the opposite. You said you called Keith a lot.
Yeah.
Do you remember on MySpace a lot of like faux management firms would send messages to bands like, be a star management for only X amount of money. We can put you in whatever.
Yeah.
I used to give them Kennedy's phone number and tell them we had an investor and we were really interested in dropping about 20 grand on management.
Yes.
And they would call Kennedy relentlessly.
That's amazing.
I found out on this tour, you're not an American citizen, or you are, but you're a dual citizen, right?
I'm not a citizen at all.
You're not a citizen at all.
I'm a resident alien.
Because you moved here from England.
Yeah.
At what age?
I was, I guess, turning 7.
Okay.
Just about 7, I think. I think I celebrated my 7th birthday in the States. So I was,
just about to
6,
turn 7. What was the hardest part of the transition?
Dude, I mean, there's so much. It's like, as a kid that age, like, you have your, you're a little kid. I had like my best friends. I was in school, like hadn't been in school for that long, couple of years, maybe my second or third year, and you kind of just get wrenched out of your life. Like, leave all your friends behind, leave all that stuff behind, and it's not like moving up the street. It's
it's a cultural shift.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. So it was a different school, different culture, different vibes. Everything was different, and I think I handled it reasonably well. I made new friends and kind of, we moved under the premise that it wasn't originally going to be permanent. It started as like, okay, it's a job opportunity for my father, and it was like a temporary 5-year kind of deal. And then, that 5 years just kind of kept getting like one more year. Yeah. And then, basically, we just committed. And, so I grew up in Maryland, grew up in Baltimore pretty much, and, went to school there, and by the time I got to high school, that's how I met the rest of the goons in my band.
Yeah. Now, where's your accent?
I think...
Is it totally gone? Does it ever come out?
It slips. It definitely slips when I'm around it.
Yeah.
Like if I'm around other Brits, it starts to slip, especially if I've had a few drinks. I kind of just start to like parrot them a little bit.
I'll do that stone sober, having been an American citizen my whole life.
Yeah, exactly.
After like 3 weeks in the UK, I'll notice that I'm starting to have a little bit of
a dialect. I do that anyway. Yeah, I do that with Southern people
all
as
the time.
well. Like if I'm around like a Southern accent, I'll start to get like a weird twang, and people are like, "What are you doing?" It's empaths. We're empaths.
Empaths?
We pick up on what people are putting out.
Okay. I was wondering if that was like another term for expat, and I just
No,
like
empathetic. I'm just pathetic.
Now you've from Emerald Moon up to Hopeless, then you went up to a major for a while.
Yeah, we put out a couple records on Hopeless, and everything was great, and we bought into that weird mindset of like, we're gonna hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
And it was, at the time, it was a mindset that I think was sort of validated in the sense that, Hopeless now is a lot bigger than it was then. It was a decent sized indie label, but we were like, we were kind of in this mindset of like, the only way to go to the next level is to sign with a major. Those are the ones that open those new doors. And I think as we made that decision, there was that shift happening in balance where the major labels were kind of on the decline and the indie labels were becoming much stronger and more capable of running these new campaigns that sort of, boost bands to that next level, so to speak. Like Macklemore did it without a label. Like, it's the mindset and the mentality was shifting as we made the decision to pursue a major label.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you've talked ad nauseum about the pros and cons of the major label, but I have really one question is, you co-wrote the single with Rivers.
Yeah.
Is he as weird as I think he is? How was working with Rivers Cuomo?
He's a good kind of weird. Like he's definitely quirky, and a lot of there's a lot of stories about him, obviously, just floating around out there. But he's a really nice dude at the end of the day. Like he's an introvert, and he's super, super smart. You can tell he's always kind of thinking about what to say next, and like figuring it out in his head before anything even pans out. And yeah, I mean, when we went to write, I went to his house. He lives in California. He has like a little separate, I guess it would have been a garage, but it's not a garage. It's like a finished little area now, kind of a pseudo studio. And we just sat on the floor and played acoustic guitars and talked for a while. And he was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, initially the idea was I wanted to sort of pay homage to Weezer. Like I consider the song we wrote together a very Weezer-esque song, like super tongue-in-cheek, and like, you know, almost like you're playing into the cheesiness, like, you know what I mean? Like it's its own joke, it's laughing at itself kind of thing. And originally Rivers was gonna sing on it, but then Rivers and Weezer had kind of a falling out with Interscope as well, and it never really ended up getting the green light at the end of the day. So I think there was a slightly, part of the joke was missed, you know what I mean, in the sense of if Rivers had sang on it, I think it would have really clarified what the point of the song was. And yeah, no, it was amazing though. It was really cool working with him and just picking his brain. And he later did actually come out. We did a show in, it was either Ireland or Scotland. It was one of the big festivals, and he actually came out on stage and sang it with us, which was really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that was one that got televised, so you can look it up and see it, and it's pretty rad. It's one
of your favorites?
One of my prouder moments. Like, hell yeah, sing the Rivers.
That is very cool. So I always like to end these on a negative note.
Okay, love that. Just punch me in the face.
No, not that negative. But someone out there, probably a lot of people out there, want to be you. So, what's the biggest mistake you've made in your career? Tell them a cautionary tale. Where have you misstepped that they can avoid it?
You know, I think the biggest misstep I personally have ever taken in this career was not trusting in ourselves enough. I think a lot of it took place around that major label thing and making that record and kind of swinging for the fences, but doing it in a way that kind of compromised what we initially set out to do as a band.
Yeah.
And only because we were young, and like when you have all these big record executives that have been in the business for, you know, 20 plus years, and they're all kind of telling you, you know, this is the right thing to do, this is the right thing to do, and we just kind of sat back and went like, yeah, maybe it is. And at the end of the day, it wasn't. And we could have just as easily stood our ground and said, no, we're going to make the record we want to make, butt out until we're done. But there's a lot of compromise and like politics in that whole situation. But I think at the end of the day, it was really just, I wish we had been a little firmer at times as far as being like, no, this is who we are, this is what we're going to do. If you don't like it, get fucked.
Perfect.
And so stand your ground.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this with me today. Much appreciated.
Loved it.